The power of the World Economic Forum is not from its crazy pictures they put forward in the cameras, but it's the deals that are done in back rooms between politicians, activists, and the world's largest corporations. That's where all the power is. And I just want to know, did you get a feeling that ARC is actually going to have that kind of power? Is it going to be a real alternate movement to the WEF, or is it more like a CPAC?
To be honest, I think it's somewhere in between. ARC did have some political representation there. I know you had your senator from Australia, Alexandra, there. There were some UK Conservative MPs. There was one Canadian Conservative MP, a couple of Republican congressmen. So there were some people there, but certainly not heads of state or heads of government like you'd see at the World Economic Forum. And to be fair, that wasn't the goal. That wasn't the focus of it. They wanted to make it about ideas, not about this global shadow government sort of thing. I think the World Economic Forum, you're right in identifying what the problem is, because they are transparent about their ideas and their panels, and they do that. But one of the things that I found so jarring when I went there as a journalist, and I had accreditation, so I was able to get into some of the areas that aren't open to the public. You go in, and at one point, the president of Spain was speaking, and I think, oh, that's a big deal. A head of government is speaking. You walk in the room, and there are like 8 people there. Like, no, the seats are empty. No one cares what's happening because they're all in the multilateral meeting rooms around the corner, which are not announced, which are not broadcast, which are not published, hashing out their plans for this deal with Microsoft on AI and this deal with these countries that were never part of any agenda that was reviewed and transparently discussed. So you are right that the WEF is trying to do this shadow UN without, I mean, the UN is unaccountable, but at least the UN nominally is a democratic body in the sense that countries have a say and people can then vote in their own countries if they don't like what's going on there. So in the case of ARC, I think it's important to note that there wasn't that second track. There wasn't that diplomatic circuit that I saw taking place at all. I don't think that means the organization can't have influence. I think it means that the influence has to come from the ideas, not from the horse trading and wheeling dealing that takes place in those rooms.
Well, something that worries me, I mean, aside from the fact that you're right, the WEF, these deals are happening behind closed doors. And if, like, when Albanese went to China and when Daniel Andrews went to China and they didn't have any scrutiny of what was being said there, the public were rightly frustrated by that and worried about what was being done with Beijing without any public notice. Well, the same thing is happening at the WEF. Deals are being made that are not part of the public record and people can't vote on or have any consultation on. Well, the Liberals and Nationals who went to ARC, they said all the right things, they did all the right stuff for the panel, but when they came back here, they are not doing anything as far as making moves to remove the WEF policy from the Liberal policy drafts. Forget about what Labor's putting forward. The Liberals in this country have WEF policies sitting in their projects and their next bid for election. Well, they haven't even said or made a press release, oh, we've come back, we've learnt lessons, we're going to get rid of it. Nothing, not a single thing. And I reckon that they are currently trying to court right-wing conservatives and libertarians and that whole movement back from the minor parties without doing anything to damage the relationship they have evolved with the renewables and big tech movement, where they expect, I presume, to have big deals with if they ever get back into government.
I think you're right about that. And one thing I'll note as well, I take a view of the WEF that it's not influential because it's pulling the strings. I don't believe that, Klaus Schwab is sitting there in his mountain, directing and centrally planning everything that's happening. I think it's worse than that. I think he's put out an agenda and has created this club and this atmosphere that leaders like Trudeau and Albanese, that they want to be a part of. They want to be a part of that club. They want to impress these people. And I think more concerningly, they buy into those policies and they buy into that agenda and bring it back. And I think that to take a roundabout way at your question here, it's why people in countries need to be a lot more nationalistic about their country's priorities. Whenever you hear things like a global community, what they're talking about is outsourcing their policy making to this global commons. I want to do what these guys are doing because we all got together and hung out and we think this is good, instead of what's in the best interests of Australians, what's in the best interest of Canadians, of Brits, of Americans, and so on. And I think you're right. A lot of the times, what's so dangerous about the World Economic Forum is that you get conservative governments and liberal governments and socialist governments that all appeal to a particular constituency in their own countries. But when they go to Davos, they all sound the same as each other. And it's why the speeches from, you'd hear someone and you'd be like, oh, wow, that guy must be some raging lefty. And it's like, oh, wow, he's the leader of the conservatives in his own country. It's the same as what happened when Boris Johnson was hosting COP26 in Scotland. And he's using the same language that any liberal or Labour politician in his situation would have been using. It's because in that global community, for lack of a better term, all of their ideological persuasions are subordinated to that global ambition.